So I'm starting to work on the Flaperons today. We are cutting form blocks, cutting templates and form blocks. You know, we just did the drawings of those. I fumbled along getting those done. I'm kind of a relearning curve when you get back into the swing of this stuff. You know, I was very, very comfortable with everything that I've done up to this point, and then when I quit working on the 701, well, I'm having to kind of relearn those skills again, some of those skills. You know, I don't work with the drafting board that much anymore, so I kind of stumbled along with that, and that's a new setup. And back here we're just cleaning up and getting things organized. We've used this for storage for the last couple, 3 years, and I just had a pile of crap like I have every place else. So as I clean stuff out, why it gets dispersed out other places, it gets thrown away, it gets whatever. But anyway, today we're working on the patterns and the cutting templates for the Flaperons again. I'm going to build one kind of a master template, and if we go back to my little drawings, and maybe you can see them a little bit better now, and we will as we go along. Why I'm just going to cut those off. I've got some MDF here that was a piece of slot wall. It won't work really well for form blocks, but it'll work perfect for cutting blocks. So I'm just going to use it to make cutting blocks off of. I'll take Super 77 adhesive and just adhere my patterns to it. I'm going to cut one template, and then we'll match route every one of them. And I'm being a little bit wasteful here, but I want them all to be exact, and I don't want to screw anything up. So I'm taking extra time here that I probably don't need to take and wouldn't have in the past. But anyway, that's what's going to go on. Looks like it's going to rain here today, and I may be hearing it starting to rain a little bit. I felt a few little drops. I've got a work table outside that normally holds my miter saw and stuff, and I've got a wing sitting outside and my smaller bending brake. So I'm going to show you those real quickly, and then we'll get back to work. I may have to take a break along the way to get everything inside, and then everything will really be a mess. Alright, so this is my dirty little airplane factory. We have the other wing that's not been skinned yet. It's hanging from the rafters up here. And when we start working on it, well, it'll come back down to the table. I had it resting on the table, but I wanted the space. So I still got a disaster in here, but we've got a little Beverly shear. It was a Beverly shear that I got several years ago, went through and refurbished it, and you'll see it used quite a bit. This is my McFarlane brake, or my Max Machine brake, and it was designed and built originally by a gentleman named Larry McFarlane, and he built a Zenith 601 HDS and needed a brake and couldn't find one, so he was an engineer, so he designed this. And this is an 8-foot brake, and he sells the plans for it. This is the first brake that I built, and it was built before I started this project. It's been a really good brake. It does a real good job. It is fairly involved to build. There's some machining in it. There's quite a bit of welding. Not exceptionally complicated, but it's a fairly involved project. And now with the price of things in the world, it would be a fairly expensive brake to build by comparison to what I built it for. And I don't remember exactly what I had in it, but it was all built with hot rolled steel and straightened. And anyway, nice brake. It's done real well for me. And then we've got a little rigid oscillating spindle sander here that you'll see me using for forms and things like that. So anyway, I've got wings and one work table sitting outside, or one wing, and then this other little brake. Now this is a 4-foot brake. This was a home-built help design, and home-built help builds does quite a bit of home building and puts out some videos on it and sponsors some videos and things like that. And the plans are available free from there. Last time I looked on the website, I didn't see them listed on any of the main pages. I had to hunt for them, but the plans were still there. So when I built this one a few years ago, I built it for less than $300, and that was using all new materials. I don't think I really scrounged anything, and I don't think I really had anything in stock. But everybody needs a brake if you're going to build, and especially if you're going to scratch build. This is a super design. It's not complicated to build. There's a little bit of machining on it and that type of thing, but it works exceptionally well. I've been real happy with this brake. I've done a couple of modifications to it. It's got some pads on the left hand end there, and then I put a couple of handles here on the right hand end to store this. Since I'm so limited on space, I can stand it up on its end, and takes up less space than the footprint that it takes with it sitting down. So that's kind of the way that goes. There's the one wing we're looking at the top, still got all the clecos in it, holding that top wing skin on. So as soon as I get these flaperons done, why we'll go back to working on the other wing. We'll get it skinned, get the bottom of the skin and everything, and then we'll do the internals so that we can go ahead and get these wings buttoned up and hung on the fuselage. So anyway, I'm going to go back, set up, and we'll start cutting forms for the flaperons. Alright, I got my little patterns here. Got the original plans up above here so I can use them as a reference. I'm going to go ahead and cut this main rib. We're going to Super 77 it on here, and we're going to go ahead and rough cut it out. Then we'll take it and sand it, and I'm going to use it as a master because we're going to develop everything else off of this one so they all come out exactly the same. So all we're going to do now, I cut all my plans out of Mylar because Mylar is stable. If you use standard paper, it'll shrink and expand as the temperature changes, as the humidity changes, that type of thing. So all of my, anything I draw out, I put on Mylar because it is stable. So it's sometimes a little bit harder to draw on. When you saw on the table, I had the edges rolling a little bit and everything, but it's because I was so close to the edge. Normally it does real well. So we are gonna just Super 77 that one right on there. Grab a piece of cardboard to put underneath that. There'll be plenty for that. I'm going to go ahead and take this and cut it off, and I'll run to the bandsaw and do a rough cut, and then we'll come back and sand it. Well, as predicted, had to make a little detour and run to cover the wing up and get the short bending brake back inside my little work table. Started to rain out there. So anyway, this is rough cut here, and like I say, this will be a master. We're going to take this over to the little oscillating spindle sander, and we're going to cut our contours, and then we'll drill our 2 index holes, tooling holes. should be all it takes right there. So now I'll go back and I'll drill my 2 1/8" tooling holes. And that's as far as we'll go with this form right now. After we cut the rest of our we'll call them next masters, but they're actually not. Once we cut the rest of our cutting blocks and form blocks, then we'll go back and drill these 2 relief holes. Alright, now even though we're not going to drill them all the way through right now, although I guess it really doesn't make a bit of difference. Yeah, let's go ahead and drill our relief holes there. There'll be the beginning of a relief hole there for our fronts and backs, so we're going to want those anyway. Let's go ahead and drop a 1/4 inch hole through them. Now in actuality, while we're here, I could go ahead and lay out and drill my other 2 1/8" tooling holes there. And I think I'll go ahead and do that. That will lay them out that way in case we were to lose the template or the mylar off of here for some reason, or it peeled off. Why, I would still have locations for those holes. So I think what I will do is I'll go ahead and lay those out and then come back and drill those. Alright, it's starting to rain, so we're not screwing, well, it's been raining, we're not going to screw around out here too long, but normally I've got a little bit better router table that I built quite a while ago, and I've used it forever. And screw there, I don't want to step on. But I already had the flush trim bit set up in my little Bosch router, and I had drilled this router table, and I haven't used this for years, just drilled it to accept my little Bosch table. So rather than changing it over to the other one for this quick little project, I'm just going to leave it here. So here it is. I bolted the first blank to it. I've just got a couple of 632 screws which just fit through a 1/8" hole. So I'm going to go ahead and just run it around, and that will give me my first full-size pattern. go. There's our first one. 3 more to do. Morning, guys. We're finishing up our cutting forms for the Flaperons. And let me show you where we're at so far. My drawings that I did on the Mylar, I've put them all on our cutting templates. And this is what I'm considering my master. This was the initial full-length cut that I did. So, glued it on here. Now, this is drilled. Initially on these, I anchored these 2 pieces together, and that's what I did the 2 halves with. So for the full-size ribs, I also made 2 of these. So I've got them. We've got our relief holes in here that go in on our master rib, and then on the backs I just countersunk them so that I can run a number 6 screw through and bolt them all together. So anyway, this is the master. From this I made 2 full-size ones. Then what I did is I went back and I made 4 more that were, or two of them would have been the rear rib, and then 2 of them would be the front rib, like that. And once I'd formed the outer edge, I router templated them. Then I went back and took them off, adhered my other 2 drawings on, one for the rear and one for the front. Then I went ahead and cut these because I drilled them here to match. So I ended up with 2 like this, it'll be 1 set, 2 nose ribs like this that will be 1 set of cutting templates, and then 2 more for this. Once I get them all cut out, I'm happy with those and everything, then I'll go back and take my master and I will cut it to actual profile to build my form blocks off of. So, and there'll be 6 more pieces for form blocks, but we'll get to that later. So anyway, one thing I did discover along the way is for relief cuts in the full-size rib and on the nose rib, we've got 2 relief cuts in there. I guess there's only 1 on the front and then the back flanges. In the past I've taken and cut these out, and since they're all routed out, I don't believe they even make a 1/4 inch that's got a guided bearing on there, and if they do, I haven't come across it yet. So you end up with about a 1/2 inch bit with a pilot bearing on it to do your patterns or to do your flush trims. So if you leave most of your hole here and just cut on your master template where it's going to go, you're going to have to finish those out by hand anyway. So if you leave them in this configuration, you can put your blank in there. You can go ahead and drill your relief holes in the proper position. And I just routed a route on the master, so I've got a little notch where the upper ends of those relief cuts are going to be. So since I'm finishing them by hand anyway, it makes more sense to get those relief cuts the right place and the right, in the right position. And then you can go back and route them and then finish them by hand. So to me that makes a whole lot more sense, because when I go back to cut these reliefs that have got the 1/4 inch, I'll still run my drill down through there, but there's a chance for it to wobble out of position. So by leaving a little more material, you're going to have to finish in there anyway, and the same on these, there's going to be a little finish right in the corner. So in this position, if I would have left a little more of that hole on there, it would have been probably a little bit easier to do. So anyway, I hope that's not too confusing. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and gather up material. I've got all of my form blocks here. I've got all my form blocks. I don't need this master, so I'll gather up materials for these and we'll come back and start cutting them out.